Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Dallas-Fort Worth. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen. Josh Utter-Leyton versus Stephen Mann, both players sitting at 10-1. A tap land here for Stephen Mann. It's a Golgari Guildgate, but a much better start for Josh Utter-Leyton on his first turn, Soldier of the Pantheon.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one here. Particularly good against these green-black decks. They have a lot of abrupt decays, things like that, that can't target the soldier.
Ooh, soldier down. We have ultimate price here on turn 2 for Stephen Mann. And one of the most efficient ways to actually get rid of one of those soldiers of the Pantheon.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how powerful Soldier of the Pantheon is because, you know, you're pretty happy when you pay 2 mana to deal with it, and it's a card that only costs 1 mana, so pretty nice one.
No life gain, no nothing. You got away with it about as clean as you can get. Darian Skyjack now to follow up for Josh Utter-Leyton. Passes back to Steven. And let's see what he can add to the board. So is Steve on this Golgari deck that like Brian Kibler was playing, or is he on more of like a mono-black Devotion with a little bit of green type deck here?
It looks like he's a mono-black Devotion deck with a little bit of green. He's not really an aggressive version of the deck. There's no Drag Manglers or Reaper of the Wilds. He still has Pack Rat, Nightveil Spectre, Desecration Demon. He's just splashing green so that he has access to 4 copies of Abrupt Decay, which allow him to deal with Detention Spheres and opposing Underworld Connections really well. And then when he has when he goes to his sideboard, he also gets access to Mistcutter Hydra and Golgari Charm, which are pretty insane.
Yeah, Abrupt Decay is really, really good right now. It kills those cards that we just mentioned. It also kills Nightveil Spectre. So being able to kill with, being able to deal with 3 of the best cards in the format, especially considering that there's an enchantment thrown into the mix, means that you know, splashing for an Abrupt Decay ends up being a pretty big game here. All right, so Imposing Sovereign for Josh Utter-Leyton. Underworld Connections on Mutavault here for Steve Mann. He's going to activate it. Finds a Pack Rat. I believe he wants land drops here, though, because I think he's going to miss his land drop. He's going to fall way behind really quickly if he doesn't start hitting them. Now, he can Abrupt Decay something here, and he does. Darian Skyjack. Now, you see he does this during his turn. He's going to make sure he plays around Brave the Elements here.
Which is definitely smart. I mean, braving the elements is something we've all had to do this weekend.
Boo.
I apologize.
No, that one actually wasn't too bad.
Yeah, could have been worse.
Yeah. But Richard Hagen didn't make it, so. Poor Rich. Rich is stuck right now in Arkansas.
Yeah, it's a strange place for an Englishman to be stuck.
It is. All right, Darian Skyjack, number 2 for Josh Utter-Leyton after the Precinct Captain hits the table. So Josh has rebuilt his board to full strength here and looking quite strong, though Steve Mann drew a land for the turn. So he's got some options now. I see he's got a Pack Rat. He's got a Nightveil Spectre in his hand as well. There's a Hero's Downfall hiding in there, and I believe a Thoughtseize. But cards like Underworld Connections and Thoughtseize seem pretty awkward against Josh's deck. He's able to apply a lot of pressure.
He's really aggressive. He's a lot of 1-drops. It's hard for him on a black deck to keep up with this.
All right, Thoughtseize it is. And that's going to take away a key card here, Spear of Heliod.
Yeah, and the Spear would have been absolutely absurd.
All right, so Steve's trying to decide what he wants to do with the rest of his turn here. He can activate that Underworld Connections. Cannot play Nightveil Spectre currently. So he's going to Hero's Downfall the Imposing Sovereign. Now, normally you would hit the Precinct Captain there, but Steve wants to take just as little damage as possible here. Is that why you'd hit the Sovereign?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of cards that he wants to play the next turn. Like, he's going to need to defend himself with creatures. So if all of his creatures come into play tapped, he's just always going to be on the back foot, and he'll get run over. Okay, so he has to take care of his Sovereign, which is great news for Josh Utter-Leyton because it means he gets to activate his Mutavault,
attack with the team, get a token, get flying on the Skyjack, which didn't really matter this time, but set it up for next turn certainly, and pass the turn back with Steve Mann sitting at a lowly 5 life. Again, you know, he's activated underroll connections a couple times and thought seized. He could be at 9 here. You know, it adds up quickly.
And it's looking like there's not much he can do. He has that back rat and Nightveil Spectre, but they can't really contend with Josh's current board, especially with that Mutavault on the table.
Yeah. I mean, he can play both of them. And that would allow him to survive the turn potentially, because he could block, you know, a soldier token or chump block the precinct captain with the rat. And he could trade his Spectre for this daring Skyjack, but
then he still goes down to 1,
still
though.
goes down to 1, right.
Yeah.
So, ugly situation here for Steve Mann. Josh has been the aggressor this game and has stayed that the entire time. I think we're going to see a much different look out of Steve Mann's list in Game 2 and Game 3, though.
I think you're right. I think Golgari Charm is going to make a big difference in this matchup. Lifebane Zombie, another huge one.
Yeah.
And then he also has Freakus Cure and Doomblade. So.
And, you know, you mentioned this in our last round, and there it is. Josh shows him Brave the Elements, and that's going to do it. Josh Utter-Leyton up a game. You know, you mentioned this in our last round about, you know, it's almost just as important is what cards he gets to take out of his deck as the ones that are going to go in.
Exactly. So
I mean, he's taking out.
He's got to take out a lot of his card advantage and a lot of his disruption because it deals him damage.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you can't really be doing that against a deck that plays so many 1-drops. So here we get to a look at these sideboards. Josh Utter-Leyton, pretty happy to have those 3 Dark Betrayals in his board.
Oh,
also,
yeah.
You know, Zathran Necromancer, a nice card against this mono black deck. Especially good against a lot of specific draws that the mono black deck has. Always good, but I mean, if they have cards like Devour Flesh, you end up getting a lot of value off that Zathran Necromancer, and if their removals are things like Doomblade, then they're often stuck spending their removal spells on other creatures and actually giving you the tokens. So you get a lot of value there. Definitely a card Josh wants to be bringing in here.
4th Orzhov Charm?
I'm not sure. It really
Okay.
depends. I haven't played at all with the black-white deck, so I'm not sure what their full sideboard plan is. It seems like he already has a lot of cards he wants to be bringing in, like he has Thoughtseize, Dark Betrayal, and Zathran Necromancer, so I don't know if there's really room for Orzhov Charm.
Okay.
But it's interesting because he does want to take out a lot of the stuff that he has with 1 toughness because he's definitely expecting something like Shrivel or Golgari Charm post-boarded games after seeing a mono black deck that's splashing green, because what are you going to splash green for if you're not playing Golgari Charm on the board?
Now, interestingly, Stephen Mann's sideboard actually, you know, not super well set up. I mean, we've seen people prepare for this matchup even more, though he is nice here. 3 Freakus Cure, 2 Doomblade, and the Golgari Charm is a nice removal suite to bring in, especially when you're taking out cards that hurt you, you know, getting those Thought Seizers or whatever out. And then you mentioned it as well, the 2 Lifebane Zombie. I mean, we've seen this matchup go from, you know, mono white kind of having its way to it looks almost unwinnable post board after bringing in like 12 cards or something like that. I don't think we're going to see quite that many from Steven, but it's pretty close. He's going to bring in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's going to bring in 8 cards potentially here.
Yeah, I'd say he's probably bringing in 7, 8. He might bring in like 11 cards.
What would be the other?
Doomblade, Whip.
Oh, the Whip should come in, right? So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is what I'm counting. No Mistcutter Hydras, no Dark Betrayal. But, yeah, so we're going to see a transformation here for sure. Steve Mann's deck is going to become the control deck in a big way here. And the question is just, can Josh Utter-Leyton react to that? He knows it's coming. The question is, does he have the tools to deal with it?
It's coming. And he does. I mean, he has Thoughtseize. He has a lot of really good tempo cards in this list post-board.
Okay.
I think he really does have what he needs to contend. It's just a question of whether or not he'll be able to get onto the board fast enough, because he really does need to flood the board against this mono black deck, and that's hard to do on the draw even in game 1.
Right.
So I think if Josh wins game 2, it's going to be an absolute gift against a post-boarded mono black deck, but game 3 is really where he's hoping to get him.
And that's just simply because he's going to be on the play.
Exactly. Like, if he's able to play a 1-drop, then there's not much that Steven's going to be able to do about that on his turn 1. And then on turn 2, he'll get to play a 2-drop, and then Steve's always one step behind. You know, he's always taking damage when he's playing these removal spells that he has.
Josh Utter-Leyton is currently ranked 2nd in the world.
Yeah, last year he was Player of the Year, just about the most prestigious title you can get in the Magic the Gathering world.
It is. I mean, I think that, you know, Pro Tour champion is really, really high on the list. But I think when you really look back, if you look at Player of the Year, you know,
they're
that
all
is
great.
Super significant. Yeah, it's just like, because being good, you know, over the long term is incredibly difficult. Like, it's like putting up consistently high results is so difficult. And you can see that Josh has done that
for, you know, every event.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that.
And you need to kind of run good, too. Like, it's really hard.
It is extremely, extremely difficult.
Yeah, you take a look at Josh's resume here. And, I mean,
77 pro points last year.
He's a machine. Like, the guy's just an absolute machine. Already got 23 this year and on his way back to platinum. So, pretty nice here. On our back table there, you get a look at Ben Stark. And it looks like... Oh, and he's already won the match. And his opponent, I don't know who that is, but he did get a I Played a Hall of Famer pin.
Hey.
So...
He got something.
Not walking away with nothing. Doesn't have to carry that match slip, and he gets a pin, too. Okay, so let's see.
It's almost better than winning.
Almost. Don't think that's true. All right, so Temple of Silence for Josh Utter-Leyton. So no 1-drop from Josh here.
Yeah, but it does look like he has Necromancer, and he has a lot of other interactive cards in his hand also. So.
Yeah, it's almost better in some ways, right? I mean, I wonder if he's pulled away some of his 1-drops out of the deck just so he can play around some of the cards that he expects to face. You know, if he can slow his deck down a step at making it more resilient, that's going to set him up quite nicely. Breeding Pool there for Steve Mann, kind of interesting.
It's a nice one because it allows him to play an extra source of green mana, but it still taps for Nightveil Spectre mana. So it's pretty cool.
So that's
like
basically a forest in his deck, but then with a little bit extra.
Yeah, it's a forest that can also cast Nightveil Spectre, and conveniently it combos with a Nightveil Spectre pretty nicely because if you flip up something like a Master of Waves, then you can cast it.
Yeah.
And
cute. I love it.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right, so Zathra Necromancer for Josh Utter-Leyton, although Stephen Mann untaps and plays the Desecration Demon. So the pressure begins on both sides. Mutavault, 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 and double Zathra Necromancer now as well, and Josh passes a turn back. So Josh is going to have no problem keeping that Desecration Demon at bay once he has enough pressure on the board to actually make it worth it.
Yeah, I mean, this turn we might see him activate the 3rd Mutavault and just sacrifice it. He'll end up getting 2 zombies, which is pretty nice.
Oh, because Mutavault
and he taps down that Desecration Demon. So yeah, so activating the Mutavault, it's definitely the play that I would make.
Disgusting.
Going to go ahead and sacrifice this.
So here's one of the great interactions with Zathra Necromancer. They are all over the place. They're hard to see sometimes. You don't see them, and it's like, wait, you get that thing's a human. You know, you see a lot of people picking up cards and checking the type, and Mutavault definitely a human.
It's human and a robot.
And there's really no way around it for Steve, right? I mean, even if he just Doomblades the Mutavault or something like that, it's still not.
Yeah, I mean, Josh is just going to get 2 tokens out of it.
And he can just sack one of the tokens or whatever. But he's going to Freakus Cure one of the Zathra Necromancers, so that's going to mean that Josh gets a token from that, but not one when the Mutavault ends up dying. But you know what? Josh says, I think I'll just not do that then.
Yeah, I guess he'll just sacrifice. He might still sacrifice the Mutavault.
I don't think he's going to.
Maybe he just sacrifices nothing.
Yeah, maybe he just says, sure, you want to attack me? I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 power. Like, let us partake of the race.
Yes.
Yeah, he doesn't, and he doesn't, and so back we go. So Josh is sort of setting up his board state here, getting things ready. Was that a Banisher Priest?
It was. He doesn't have the double white for it, but he does have a Dark Betrayal.
Oh, wow, a Dark Betrayal for Josh Utter-Leyton to take down the massive 4-drop, activate a Mutavault, and crash in with the team for 8 damage.
That's a lot of damage.
That's a ton.
And here, I'm saying how good Zathra Necromancer is in this matchup, and that's being illustrated right here and right now.
Really awkward. Josh has a Brave the Elements in his hand, triple Mutavault, 2 zombies, and his Zathra Necromancer. It doesn't actually do anything.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah.
And only white lands, so only 1 white source of mana. So
Right.
even if he does draw a white creature, he's not going to be able to protect it.
It'll be a while. All right. Night Veil Spectre for Steve Mann. Josh untaps and surveys the scene. He draws Soldier of the Pantheon.
Not what he wants to draw there at all.
No, not really.
I mean, I don't think he
just
can
sort
cast anything in his hand even
well,
at this point.
Soldier he can cast. He just drew it.
Oh, he drew Soldier of the
He
Pantheon?
just drew Soldier of the Pantheon.
Oh, okay.
So he can
I thought
cast
you were
that.
talking about another
Precinct Captain.
Yeah.
No, it was a Soldier. So he can draw. He can cast that. But you're right. I mean, considering the fact that he has 4 lands on board, it's got to be a little bummed that he can't develop his board out more, even though, generally speaking, I'd assume that drawing as many Mutavaults as possible is probably pretty good, but...
Yeah, I mean, usually you want to draw at least 2 colored sources of mana, though, when
Right.
you're playing a deck like his.
Luckily for him, he does have a dual land, so he has some options, but...
Yeah, I mean, that's why the hand was keepable. So,
And it's also a scry land, so...
yeah,
All
he
right.
probably thought he was going to be able to find that second source of white that he wanted so badly with that.
And there it is. Gary, as he's known, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, is going to come down and represent a 10-point life swing here. Stephen Mann goes
Yeah,
up to
that's
19.
huge.
It is. Now, does he have an attack, though? No, right? He
It's
does
really
not.
hard to attack. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's a 2/3 and your opponent's whole board is 2 power.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't really feel like
2 damage
it's
and
the
a
time to
card
pull
for
that trigger.
8 to 10 damage
Yeah.
seems bad. Josh drew another Soldier of the Pantheon for the turn. Does he have attacks now? Absolutely not. Passes the turn back.
Doesn't look like it.
So Gary holding down the ground, Night Veil Spectre holding down the air, and Stephen Mann's flooding. He's just got a bunch of lands in hand and can't really do much here. Is he going to lose his patience, start attacking with Night Veil Spectre? Does he have another play?
That's dangerous to attack with that Nightfell Spectre.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm just looking at his hand. He doesn't have anything going. He just says go. Because Josh eventually is going to be able to start attacking. He draws a white mana source. All right.
And that's going to be absolutely huge for him. That'll allow him to use Banisher Priest to get Grey Merchant of Asphodel off the table, and then he can start crashing it with these Steel Soldier or Pantheons if he wants to.
Yeah, now that's a dangerous play, though, right? I mean, his opponent has 2 cards in hand and is sitting on a mono black deck nearly.
Yeah.
You know, Banisher Priest on Grey Merchant could represent a pretty brutal beating if the Banisher Priest were to die.
That's
and
true.
It dies to basically all the removal that Steve Mann has. So
That's true. It does give him a zombie, though. I
It
guess you're
does
right,
give him
though.
a
I
zombie.
think you probably... you're definitely correct. He doesn't do that. If he's going to do anything, he'll Orzhov Charm the Grey Merchant.
just get rid of it.
Yeah, and he'll gain the 2 also from the 2 soldiers, and then he can start crashing in with some soldiers, and he'll even have follow-up plays.
All right, there it is. And Orzhov Charm. Yeah, get rid of Grey Merchant. And Steve Mann's going to read it. It hasn't seen that much play in Standard. It had a nice splash in the last Standard.
Yeah, it was a pretty good
Won
card.
a Pro Tour,
It did win a Pro Tour.
but hasn't seen much recently. So now Josh gains a couple of life there and lines
Did
up an
he not
attack
gain
with
the life?
double soldiers.
Oh, he didn't gain the life off the soldiers.
He didn't.
Nope.
They should have left him at even, right?
No, it's toughness.
Oh, it's toughness.
Yeah, so he should have lost 2.
Oh, so he
But-
did. He was at 13.
I
Right.
thought he was at 15.
Oh, no, actually, I think you're right. I think he was at 15. He might have not gained that life.
And that can make a huge difference here. His opponent just drew another Gary.
Josh is at 11, at least according to our table judge there. So,
Yeah, I mean, our table just sitting right next to his life pad, so...
yeah. And there it is, Grey Merchant. Another 5 life swing, or another
this-
10 life swing
This
here.
puts Josh in a pretty scary place, to be honest.
The question is, at what point does Steve Mann just start attacking with that Night Veil Spectre, since it's now a 3-turn clock, and I don't know if he has anything else going on. I believe he still has 2 swamps left in his hand.
And he can cast a lot of cards out of Josh's deck, too. Like, it'd be pretty ridiculous if he was able to, flip up a Necromancer or a Doomblade or even something like a Dark Betrayal.
Oh, the Soldier only triggers when your opponent plays spells that are multicolored. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just checked it real quick.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So Josh is at 6 officially. And he's taking a look at the scene here. I mean, he's in a pretty rough spot.
Yeah, it's a pretty scary place to be right now if you're Josh Utter-Leyton.
we have about 100 people on Twitter telling us about Soldier, so
yes,
we found it a little too late, it seems. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that, guys.
All right, there it is. Josh feels like, I gotta move in here and play this Banisher Priest, even though, again, he's got to be worried about removal here. He's going to hedge a bit and take out the Nightveil Spectre instead of the Grey Merchant. And this is going to line up a big attack here. He's going to leave back the Zathra Necromancer attack for 10 damage potentially. Grey Merchant can jump in front of something, and it does. But now Josh knows that Steve Mann doesn't have removal.
Yeah, and that changes a lot.
That changes everything. So Josh had to take on some risk there to get in some damage, as he knows that if the game goes much longer, he's not going to be in good shape. And a Doomblade off the top. That's going to look pretty weird to Josh Utter-Leyton, as now his Banisher Priest will get Doombladed at some point potentially. But
well, he'll know that his opponent drew it off the top, and
right.
then he'll pretty much assume that the rest of Steve's hand is just land. So it's going to be pretty strong next turn, though, when Steve Mann is able to use the Doomblade on that Banisher Priest during combat. Nightveil Spectre is going to jump right into play and get in front of that zombie token.
So Josh Utter-Leyton's at 6.
Yeah,
but really under no immediate threat here from Steve Mann.
I mean, he does lose to a lot of draw steps from Steve next turn, though.
Mm-hmm.
If Steve is able to draw another Grey Merchant on the next turn, he's likely going to win this game.
Mm.
Steve would really like to draw that Golgari Charm.
All right, Doomblade your Banisher Priest. He's going to do it right now while his opponent's completely tapped out.
And that makes a lot of sense. He knows that his opponent has Brave the Elements in hand, and he's familiar with what.
Well, he doesn't know he has it in his hand, I don't think.
Yeah,
but
I
he
mean,
knows he has it in his deck. So
he definitely has many copies in his deck, and he hasn't played one yet. And his white mana's been pretty stifled up until now.
The downside to this is that Josh does get a zombie untapped in without Summoning Sickness on his turn, so that could matter. But it certainly seems to outweigh the other end of the spectrum, where his spell doesn't even resolve at all, and he doesn't get his Nightveil Spectre. So
here Josh can. I think Josh just plays 2 creatures. He plays an Imposing Sovereign and a Daring Skyjack, and then passes the turn. He doesn't really have much else in the way of options. And then next turn, he's actually presenting lethal damage, and the Imposing Sovereign makes his opponent's creatures come into play tap too. So I like that. So Daring Skyjack and Imposing Sovereign.
And there's exactly what you just outlined, and pass the turn back. So this is a huge draw step now for Steve Mann. He's got to find something, and he doesn't. He finds an Underworld Connections. He probably only left 1 or 2 of them in the deck. And
well, he can use the Underworld Connections and dig for a Grey Merchant. If the top card of his deck's a Grey Merchant,
oh yeah,
he wins
good
this
point.
game.
Good point. All right. So he's definitely still in this. Can he find it, though? Wow.
Gary.
Not the,
where are you, Gary?
Not the out I envisioned, but it could absolutely be one. All right, here it is. Draw step, Gray Merchant. Maybe something else? Golgari Charm? I think that was a swamp. No, it wasn't a swamp.
No, it was
what
a black
was it?
card.
What is that? A zombie? Lifebane
Hero's
zombie?
Downfall, I believe.
Hero's
Not exactly what he's looking for.
I think it's a
Lifebane.
Lifebane zombie, yeah. But that's not going to get it done here. Not quite. He's actually just not even going to play it. He's just going to dare Josh
To go all in.
to move in here. But Josh is going to oblige him. I think he is no stranger to
Yeah, I mean,
sending in the team. He also has multiple Bravely elements here.
sometimes you just need to Frogger it. You know, run into oncoming traffic and hope you make it across.
All right, Josh is considering his options. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 power, but 2 creatures, 2 blockers on Stephen Mann's side. So Josh has to be careful here. He also has a double Mutavault he can send in as well. But
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to send those
Steve
in.
has 2 unknown cards in his hand. And since Josh is sitting at 6, he's got to be a little careful. He also just wants to blank draw steps from Stephen Mann. All right, attack, 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 attack with everybody. Everybody's in. Trigger from Daring Skyjack, and that's going to do it. Josh Utter-Leyton actually takes that game down on the draw against a sideboarded mono black opponent there. So
yeah, Steve got really flooded.